Welcome back to the Carp Chronicles podcast, episode number 52. And this is the follow-up episode to the last one where I sat down and answered your questions, which you submitted on Instagram and Facebook. And it's much more of the same today. I aim to answer your questions in a little bit more detail. I've got a lot of different questions to get through. I'll do my best to get through them all. If for some reason I accidentally skip your question, don't be offended. Just send me a message on Instagram or Facebook and I'll answer it via PM directly with you. But yeah, much more of the same. Loads of questions to get through. Before we jump into them, got to mention, of course, proudly sponsored by BP Milling. Go ahead, check out bpmilling.co.uk. They offer some fantastic pellets for carp and a few other products as well. So go ahead, check them out, bpmilling.co.uk. And of course, check out my own bait company, optibaits.com. There's quite a few questions about my products, which are obviously very different from the rest of the products out on the market. So I understand people have a lot of questions about them. I'll be covering those questions. I'm sorry if it seems like I'm promoting my own products. That actually isn't the case. I'm just answering your questions. So yeah, I don't want it to seem like this is a big advert for OptiBaits. I really don't want that whatsoever. But nonetheless, you've asked questions. And I'm sure if one or two of you have asked a question on something, probably a lot of more of you have got the same question that you want to answer. So I'll be covering those as well as all kinds of different questions on angling, quite a few questions on bait, seasonal approaches, loads of different stuff to get through. Actually, obviously, I read the questions, I skim them, but I don't think, I'll say this to that one. I keep it as neutral and as, not neutral, that's not the right word, but I keep it as real as possible. So nothing is sort of planned out or anything like that. Typical Carp Chronicles style. We're pretty on the fly and I don't know, I guess you could say unprofessional, but I think it's just real. Anyway, let's get into it. Question number 1. Oh, by the way, should mention I am recording this in a little shed type thing next to a road. I think it's probably going to rain and there might be the odd car or two passing by. So there might be a bit of background noise. As well as that, of course, I'm not on my usual microphone. Audio isn't going to be quite as good as normal. Apologies. Hopefully it's listenable. All right. So let's jump into this. First question. With most modern bait being HNV and the amount used should be more focused on digestion. So let me read this again. With most modern bait being HNV and the amount used, so should we be more focused on digestion? Yeah, I think we should. I really think we should. I don't think this is given enough thought. To be honest, I think by the bigger companies is definitely something that they work to. They want it to be digested. They want it to be passed through the fish efficiently. Efficiently, there's a little bit of a pun there. Didn't intend it. So I think some companies, yeah, they're definitely thinking about that. Do I think the home roller is really thinking about that? To a degree, but I mean, I think everyone's doing the same thing. You know, they'll put a bit of roughage in there. They'll maybe put, some wheat germ, some hemp expeller or something like that to up the fibre content, as well as putting other fibrous ingredients that'll pass through. But I mean, I don't think anyone's looking into prebiotics, probiotics, or anything like that. I do in my mixes that I make. I think it's actually quite important. I think if you look at the equipment that carp have to digest food, everyone says, it's very basic, it's very basic. It is and it isn't, But I think there's more that can be done. I really, really do. I'm a fan of prebiotics and probiotics, not just in fish feed formulation, but also for humans, for myself as well. And I think there's probably a lot we can do with digestion. Now, digestion and gut transit time get kind of blurred. They get confused all the time. It's a bit of an annoyance of mine, and I've mentioned this before, so I'm kind of going over old ground, but slamming a load of... And this isn't directed at any particular company, by the way. So, I don't want to offend anyone, but just slamming a load of spices into your bait is not a way to make it more digestible. Yeah, it's going to pass through the fish quickly because the spices are an irritant. They're a gut irritant. Your body, it's the same as us. If you go and have a vindaloo right now, you're probably going to be shitting that out pretty quick tomorrow, and it's probably not going to be a very pleasant experience for you. Now, obviously, carp's digestive system are very different than ours, but it's the same thing. These spices, the capsaicin within the spices, it's an irritant. It's a gut irritant. So, yes, it's going to fly through them. And, yeah, they'll keep eating it. And, yes, you could argue that capsaicin, certainly for humans, when we consume them, it actually releases feel-good endorphins and hormones even. Does that happen with fish? No, I don't think it does. It doesn't happen with birds either. They don't have the correct apparatus for that to be facilitated, but humans do. But nonetheless, it is an irritant. Now, I'll be honest. To my knowledge, there's no studies on whether spices actually irritate the gut, as in the carp are actually conscious of it. So I'll just repeat that. There's no studies that I'm aware of that have studied, okay, when the carp eat these spices, does it get a bit of an upset tummy? Does it feel discomfort, etc.? I don't know if that's the case or not. I would hazard a guess, drawing some conclusions from different things. I'd hazard a guess that yes, it is uncomfortable for them. And therefore, I'm pretty careful about putting a load of spices in my bait now. Do they work? Yeah, of course they do. I mean, carp will get caught countless times on bait with spices in, and it sounds like I'm contradicting myself now. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it is desirable, does it? So for me, I don't think they're necessary. I realise no one asked me about spices. No one asked me about spices. I'm just sort of riffing on here. But nonetheless, I think people need to make this distinction between gut transit time and digestibility. Something could fly through their gut very, very quickly, but they're not actually assimilating, they're not breaking down the nutrients, they're not absorbing what they need very efficiently. Conversely, something could take a bit longer to pass through, but they could garner more nutrients from it. And then again, something could pass through nice and quickly, and they could extract shed loads of nutrients from it. That's probably the ideal, because it's best of both worlds. Reality is it's a bit harder to create. That being said, as I said, you can get a little bit clever with prebiotics, probiotics, and I think that path is going to give you more results than perhaps the more traditional paths that people take when trying to make baits more digestible. It's certainly something that I put into practice with my baits. I can't obviously comment on other bait companies. Well, actually I can, because I know what they do, and they don't do it. It's as simple as that. Right, next question. Best winter combination in conjunction with your milk mix for corkball pop-ups. Oh, that's a tough one. Because, so the milk base mix, Hydro Milk, is doing really well at the minute with butter spice, my butter spice flavour, which is a bun spice with some buttery, scopexy type elements. Coupled that with the Cream Dream, which is more of a out and out Scopex flavour with a twist, a little bit of black pepper in there. It's quite an interesting flavour actually. The combination of those two, the butter spice and the Cream Dream, has been doing a lot of fish, as is the strawberry cream EA, which is the best strawberry recipe ever made, in my opinion. Genuinely think that. On an ethyl alcohol base, combined with the cream that I use, which is also on an ethyl alcohol base, which also in its own right, that's the Cornish cream, by the way, also in its own right is an absolutely phenomenal flavour, and it will never stop working. Carp will eat it again and again and again, and they'll find it very, very attractive and very palatable. So that strawberry cream is working really well as well. Now, if I was going down the route of hook baits and I was slinging out singles, showing fish or just where I thought the fish were, would I use those flavours? I would do, happily. No issue whatsoever. That being said, in winter, if we're talking about the dead of winter, polar fruit. Sorry, I'm just like mentioning my own flavours. It's because I have confidence in them. I know what's in them. I know how good they are. I get so many catch reports. So yeah, it's what I'm confident in. Apologies if it just sounds like a big advert. It's not meant to be. But yeah, anyway, the polar fruit. And I have to give Pete credit here because this is a blend that he used to use. And then I sourced the recipes and the flavours and tweaked it and blah, blah, blah. But that polar fruit flavour is absolutely phenomenal in winter. It just catches fish when everything else fails. So if you wanted to go with our flavours, in fact, yeah, if you just wanted the best flavour possible for winter, I mean, it's going to come down to personal preference, isn't it? Some people are going to want to use a John Baker flavour. His plum, although it's not necessarily a winter flavour, his plum is a very good flavour. Catches a lot of fish. His maple is the other flavour of his that I like. Both of those flavours, they're absolutely great. They'll work well in winter, of course they will. For me, years gone by, in winter, I love Tutti Frutti, the proper Tutti Frutti. I think that's very hard to beat. In our polar fruit, it's Tutti Frutti. I'm not so sure I'm even supposed to say this, but it's my stuff, so I can say it. But yes, it is Tutti Frutti combined with the blackcurrant flavour. That blackcurrant that I brought out a while ago, that everyone went absolutely mad for, that is phenomenal in the winter as well. Blackcurrant and very high levels of buku essential oil on an ethyl alcohol base. Man, that is a good flavour for winter. I've sold some of that, sort of off the website to a few select people. Those guys that have that. In fact, who asked this question? It was Wayne, wasn't it? I won't say his second name, just in case you don't want it out there. But I think you've bought some of the of my blackcurrant and buku EA flavour. So I would use that, or the polar fruit. Again, the polar fruit is phenomenal. It's just so good. It will work all year round, but in the winter, it just comes into its own. Now, I will say something. The blackcurrant that I brought out before, that I had to take off the shop because of buku oil supply issues. I could get buku oil, which is skunk oil. Some of you will know it from skunk oil. It's an essential oil made from the buchu plant. It's ridiculously expensive. You're talking thousands per litre of the real proper gear. I could get the cheaper stuff and still produce that flavour, and shitloads of people will buy it because they've got the confidence in it from before, but it's not the same quality. It's not as good. You want the absolute best of that skunk oil. It makes a massive difference, so I will not sell it if I can't get the real stuff. Now, to be honest, the supply has changed a little bit. And there is scope for me to get more of it. Again, it is very expensive. I'm using it in a fish mix, and I'm actually putting it on a propylene glycol base, a PG base, or MPG, monopropylene glycol. And obviously it's the exact same recipe as it was when I had it on EA. It's just on MPG now. That makes it a bit more affordable because MPG is much more cost effective than ethanol. So I'm toying with the idea as to whether I should bring it out or reintroduce it, I should say, because that flavour is genuinely special. I would put that flavour against any other flavour ever made, genuinely. And I'd be very, very confident in it. So, yeah, I'm seriously considering bringing that out. The supply issue is no longer an issue. It's just really freaking expensive. So it will be a pricey flavour. And I'm sure loads of people will freaking moan how expensive it is. But, if you don't want it, don't buy it. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent here. What was the question? Best winter flavour. Yeah, I would say that. I would also get and I know you've bought this, Wayne, but put the lust dust that you bought in it as well. That'll go a long way in triggering a response, particularly in the cold weather. I mean, all year round, but when it's cold, the bait needs all the help it can get to get the carp to feed. So yeah, for you, buddy, use that blackcurrant EA that I've sold you. I'm 90% sure you've got some. Or the polar fruit. I know you've bought a lot from me. You probably bought that as well. Use one of those two. You're going to be doing well. Right, next one. Oh, by the way, tip of the episode. I am several beers in. I'm on the Shipyard IPA, but I've also got a hazy pale ale, which is by Vocation Brewery, and a American IPA, which is also by Vocation Brewery. So I've got those kind of craft beers to have along with the Shipyard, which I quite like. So yeah, that's the tip of the episode. I think 3 beers deep at the minute, so I'm feeling fine, but they'll keep flowing, I'm sure. Yeah. So if you're drinking alongside me, then cheers. Here's to us. Next question from Wayne again. You've done a milk-based mix. Are you going to do a fish meal one? Yes, I am. And it's ready to go. It's been ready for a long time. It's difficult because, I mean, who releases a fish meal base mix at the end of autumn going into winter? I mean, idiots? I don't know. It's not a good time to release it. But actually, I'm just going to do it anyway because that fish mix is absolutely good to go all year round. I call it voodoo, right? It's the voodoo mix. That's what I call it. That's what I've always called it. That's what our testers call it. Or my testers, I should say. It's known as the voodoo mix. Whether I'll, put it as that name when it comes to market or not, I don't know. But I probably will do. Why not? It's always been the voodoo mix to us because it is a bit of voodoo. It's very soluble. There are high levels of solubles in there. You'll need a hard hook bait mix with this unless you're doing very short sessions because it will just break down very efficiently and quickly. There's decent levels of fish meals in there. In fact, there's high levels of fish meals in there. It's extremely digestible, extremely soluble. Absolutely fine to use all year round. It's been in existence for a long time, a very long time. All my stuff has, but no more so than this mix. Last winter did very, very well. And I know I keep these things very close to my chest unless they're going to come out imminently, because why wouldn't I? But yeah, it's a bit of voodoo. It's a bit different. It's very different, in fact. And if I'm honest, it's probably the best fish meal bait I will ever produce. Maybe I'll produce some more in the future. I don't know. But if I'm being totally honest, I just can't see me producing a better bait than this. It is absolutely phenomenal. So to answer your question, yes, there is a fish meal base mix coming out very soon. I won't be offering it ready rolled for reasons I've stated before. I just don't have time for that. It's just a ball ache I don't want. Look, I sell specialist ingredients that are very different from the norm. Like if you want to use that sort of stuff, you've got to be prepared to put a bit of work in yourself. There's got to be a trade-off, isn't there? And I know, Wayne, you're more than happy to do that. I know you've bought quite a lot of the hydro milk, I think. In fact, I know you have. So yeah, it's not directed at you, that comment. It's just directed at people in general. If I had the means to roll it for you all, I absolutely would, but unfortunately I don't. Next question: how to get carp on a bait? Pre-baiting methods, regularity, volume, etc. Labeling a bait. Yeah, good question. Look, it's very hard for me to say you need X amount of boilie per week or per 2 days or whatever, because it's all, and you know this, but it's all going to depend on the stock levels of the lake, how big the fish are, what other bait is going in, how much natural food is going in, blah, 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 blah. So it's very hard to give you specifics unless I know exactly what your water is. I know the ins and outs of it. But general rules of thumb, you want to label it. I mean, labeling a bait, it used to be spoken about a lot more. I don't really hear that spoken about now. But you've got to think, so let's say your water is dominated by fish meals, right? And they're all by the big brands, but also the smaller brands, that you perhaps have a bit more faith in. As I've said before, all of those mixes are going to be pretty much the same. There's going to be a good chunk of LT94 in, good amount of pre-digested fish meal, maybe some sardine and anchovy, maybe some caper. They're going to be pretty much the same. There's going to be a touch of soya, touch of semo, some roughage in there, maybe 5% brewer's yeast, 10% whey protein concentrate. They're all very freaking similar. So yeah, to put a stamp on it, a label on it, so the fish can distinguish between all the other shit going in and yours, is a good idea. Of course, even better than that, use a better bait than everyone else, or use a different bait. I mean, hydro milk, this is part how it was born. I wanted a bait that would single out bigger, older fish, but as well as that, it would be very different from the rest of the baits that the lake is seeing, because even if there was other milk protein baits being used on the water, there's no other milk protein bait like the hydro milk on the market. That's not me giving it the big one. That is just a simple fact of the matter. There is no other bait like that out there. So if I'm using that, that is my label. I don't need a flavour or anything else to distinguish it. It's a highly nutritious, highly attractive, very unique bait that no one else is using. But if you don't have that luxury, then yeah, sure, getting a flavour on it, getting a certain label on it is definitely advisable. In terms of frequency, more as long as it is being eaten, more often than better. I mean, you've obviously got to bring into account bird life, the birds eating it, a crayfish eating it, other species eating it. You need to bring all of that into consideration. In an ideal world, and this, who lives in an ideal world? I definitely don't. But in an ideal world, you'd go down there every single day. You'd give them just enough to, let them have their fill, but then want to come back for more. And you do that every single day at the same time of day. They'll get conditioned to when the bait goes in. I'm not saying they're going to be there waiting for it, but they'll kind of know soon after to come. I believe that, I really do. But that would be ideal. Now, in reality, if I can get down and bait up a spot every other day, I am freaking happy. I'm very happy. I'm a happy man. If it's every 3 days, then I'm still happy with that. That's fine. I don't get the luxury to do this these days, by the way. I do not have time for pre-baiting. I don't even have time for fishing. To be honest, I'm going to be doing very short day sessions this winter. I think I said on the last one. I just don't have that time luxury. But yeah, so pre-baiting is not a thing for me now. If you can afford the time and you can make time to do it, then do that. It's going to pay off for you. Again, as long as the fish are eating it. If you just keep on piling the bait in a spot, and it's not being eaten and it's going to shit and it's all going all nasty, and that is not good. You're going to kill your spot. So yeah, you've got to be a bit smart about it. It's definitely not a case of more is better. It's give them as much as they can have, and keep giving it to them regularly, and you'll get the results from it. I mean, presuming you're using a half decent bait. If your bait is absolute shit and it's not palatable and they only eat a bit and then they don't want to eat anymore, then yeah, you're not going to do well. But yeah, if you use a good bait, then you're going to be onto a winner. So yeah, anyway, I don't know if that helps. Let's put it on the other end. If you're thinking once every 3 days, I don't have the luxury to do that. Do what you can. I've done it where it's just once per week, which is when I fish. Perhaps I'll stalk around, I'll find the fish and I'll fish to them. But perhaps every single time I'm at the lake, if it's only once a week, fine. I'll put a bait in an area, I'll get something going. Even if I'm not necessarily going to fish it anytime soon, I'll get it going. I've done that a little bit this year. I'm not at the lake very often at all, but there's this little area where no one ever fishes. Personally, I can see the fish going there in the winter, and I'm putting bait there every single time I'm there. I could go 3 weeks without going to the lake, but when I do go, I'll still put a little bit of bait in there. Why not? It doesn't hurt. Keep things going. And this is something I do all the time, actually. I might have my main baiting up area when I do have the time to bait up, but I'll get other little spots going. This little area, always neglected. Just put a little bit in there, put a little bit in there, put a little bit in there. The amount of times that that, I've been stuck for a swim, or, that I haven't been able to find the fish, and I thought, I'll go to that area that I've constantly been putting a bit of bait in, even if it's a handful or two, and I've had fish. That happens quite a lot, actually. So that's worth doing as well. Get the bait going in, get it in the different areas, and try and make your bait nice and unique. If you're not rolling your own, and you can't go like super out the box with the mix, fine. Add a different dimension to it. Maybe that's chucking some liquid on it that's distinctive, or, and some powders afterwards. I said before, I'm big into that, Get the boilies out the freezer, soak them with some liquid, and then put some powder on. That added attraction. Don't overdo it. You can add the wrong things for sure, but that'll give a bit of a label and a bit of a difference. Yeah, it'll get washed off, but if the fish are getting there to in reasonable time, then it's going to be distinguishable for them. Hope that helps, buddy. Next question, ways to improve digestibility of a boilie mix. I think I've kind of covered this. It's a good question, Nikki, but I think I kind of covered this on a few questions ago. So I won't go into that. I mean, yeah, okay, I didn't go into the probiotic, prebiotic thing, but I mean, I was going to sound like an arsehole now, but I kind of want to keep that to myself. I might actually, yeah. I had this thought where, okay, I'm doing very different things with like the base mixes and the pop-ups and things, and I'm not telling anyone about it for obvious reasons. You want to keep it to yourself. But actually, I did have this thought that, why don't I just divulge my mix? Why don't I just tell everyone exactly what is in Hydro Milk, exactly what is in the other things that I sell? Because I think that would probably, well, it would make people more confident in it. B, it would increase the sales. I'm overly worried about that. But, I mean, you're not going to make it at home in the same way that I can, because I've got a bit more buying power. So, yeah, I did think, actually, why don't I just fucking tell everyone what I'm doing? But I'll mull it over. I won't rush into that. Right, next question. PVA bag mix and hook bait. From Wayne again. I don't know if I answered this in the last episode or not, actually. What do I... At the minute, I'm using the Hydro Milk base mix in PVA bags. And I'm just using a Hydro Milk home-rolled bottom bait in it. And I'll tip that off sometimes, sure. I like the black buku pop-ups that we do. I'll tip it with that. I will say that I like the specials that I rolled up a while ago, which is based on pineapple, N-butyric, some other organic acids and little bits. I'll often tip with that as well. But yeah, at the minute I'm using the Hydro Milk base mix. If you want to be a little bit, you want to save a bit of money on that, then the primer powder, which is very affordable, that I sell, is ridiculously good. Particularly if I was fishing fish meals, the Voodoo mix, which I will be. I'll get into what I'm doing later. But then, yeah, I'll definitely use that primer powder in conjunction with that. So, yeah. What was I going to say? Yes. Dean Towie, Scientific Baits, he started a podcast and he interviewed a chap called John. And he did some interesting stuff with PVA bags, where he mixed, I'm trying to think what he did. He mixed hydrolyzed casein, Pepto Pro, which I put in the Hydro Milk. He used that alongside liver, CPSP 90, and I think he used some other bits as well in solid bags, and he did very well on that. I think he used yeast as well. Not a million miles away from the Hydro Milk, where there's no fish meal in the Hydro Milk, but there is, hydrolyzed milks, hydrolyzed casein, hydrolyzed whey protein, there's yeast as well. Yeah, for me that's pretty much as good as I can do for what I'm trying to do on this particular lake. Hope that helps, buddy. Next question. I don't know if I answered this one as well, actually. I'll answer it just in case. No, I did answer this one in the last episode. Fishing a silty, shallow silty lake, mostly smelly silt, ideal baits and application of it. Yeah, I think I mentioned this. add your powders and your liquids, so that attraction is shining through the silt. I mean, the carp will feed, gill deep in stinky silt, and they'll detect things. So don't worry too much. But yeah, personally, I like to use oil-based flavors on my baits, even if that's just hook baits, because they kind of quote unquote repel the silt. They retain their smell within the bait much more efficiently. For me, I would use straw bemo or the strange fruit if you wanted to go with our stuff. And use some powdered additives as well. I think I did answer this in the last episode, so I'll leave it there for that one. Right, next question, and this is a long one. So, bear with me, folks. 75-acre northern res. So it's a reservoir up north. Not fished all that much for carp. Often the only carp angler on. Rumoured to be between 20 to 60 carp. Okay. So 75 acres, 20 to 60 carp. I only fish Friday nights after work. This year I've had 10 bites from end of July to November. Started baiting 3 to 4 weeks before first bite. Been baiting every morning, 1/2 to 3/4 of a kilo of boilies. Had 7 bites, 2 fish, 3 times and 1 once. Took a big gamble and moved my baiting to the other side of the lake to try and avoid repeat captures. Okay, so he obviously feels that the fish are sort of territorial and they stay in a certain area, and he wanted to catch different ones, so he moved up the other end. I also started introducing around 100 tigers each day too. Paid off and had 2 new fish, but the last bite was from one of the fish I moved to avoid. My question: have you or anyone you know experienced anything like this? Yes, absolutely. And why do you think it happened? Yeah, I think fish sort of have their certain areas. I mean, we know this. If you climb trees and you watch fish and their patterns, you'll soon figure that out. Certain fish have certain areas that they like. Not all of them. You'll then get the proper nomadic fish who they'll be everywhere, wherever they want, no rhyme or reason, or seemingly no rhyme or reason. But yeah, then there's definitely the other fish which they like their certain areas. So if you're trying to target them, fish the areas they go. If you're trying to avoid them, fish different areas. But yeah, I definitely believe in that. Why do I think it's happened? Well, I guess for the reason I've just said, different habits of different fish. Hopefully that makes sense. Apologies if this is too much of a question to read out. No, it's all good. And he's given some more information on it. He says, I'm using all 4 Baitworks boilies mixed. All 4 okay, so the 4 different boilies that Baitworks do, he's using them all. 9 out of 10 bites have been between 5 and 9 a.m. I bait up at 6 a.m. every morning, so I think they have been trained to turn up to feed at baiting time. Yeah, quite possibly. Lots of wild swimmers come in the morning, and 3 or 4 bites have been within 15 minutes of a swimmer over a baited area. I've read this question in the last episode, haven't I? Bloody hell, folks. Sorry, you're probably all screaming at me right now, like, what is this freaking guy doing? Yeah, I've already answered this, haven't I? Sorry, Chris. If I haven't answered it and I'm just really confused and the beers are kicked in too much, then I'm sorry. But yeah, move around, maybe. I mean, using Baitworks boilies, they are good at catching lots of different fish. If you have your targets on a set fish, maybe use a little bit more of a specialised bait. That is not me shit-talking Baitworks. They make great baits. If I had to use their bait, I would happily do so. They do good stuff. I'm not saying otherwise. But all of these big companies, I think Stephen White was saying this actually, they have to catch fish from everywhere, don't they? They have to be kind of all-rounders. Whereas if you're targeting a 45-year-old mirror, you could probably change your bait to suit that fish a little bit more efficiently, couldn't you? So yeah, maybe time to look at your bait. I'm now second guessing myself and thinking, fucking hell, I didn't answer this question in the last episode at all. What am I on about? I don't know. Either I did or I didn't. Message in and let me know. Maybe I'm going mad. I'm finally losing the plot. But yeah, I mean, definitely I'm guessing you're targeting different fish. Find where they go, of course. And you know this. You do know this. Find where they go and fish for them there. If you can't, for whatever reason, Maybe there's no trees there, so you can't view them. I don't know. Take some step ladders. I've got some ladders. The amount of sideways looks I've got as I, put these ladders up against something and climb up. But I tell you what, they've caught me fish because I can see what's going on in the water. You must know where the fish are. You must. You can fish blindly, and then it's just a game of luck, isn't it? And maybe a bit of sixth sense. But if you can see where the fish are, it's an absolute freaking game changer. So get eyes on these fish that you haven't caught. Get eyes on them. Put the effort in. Work hard. Put the effort in, and you will get the reward 9 times out of 10. Okay? It might not come straight away, but it will come. So put the effort in. Maybe look at changing your bait. If you have a particular target in that water, maybe change your bait to suit that particular fish. And if you want more help on that, send me another message and I'll shoot you some feedback if you give me a bit more info on what your actual target is. Hopefully that helps. Next question. Hi Sam, a question I would like to ask on your podcast would be, how would you approach a 60-acre reservoir with only 60 carp present and stacks of crayfish and also big bream? My first thoughts of approaching it have been feeding sweet corn every few hours and ground bait with an unflavoured rubber hook bait when there's no visible sights of carp in the activity. And switch to a boilie approach when I know carp are present. Oh, okay, right, so it's bait out with particles and there's no carp there, and then switch to boilies when they are there. Okay. I know there is a lot of variables, but would very much like to hear your thoughts on the dreaded crayfish. Crayfish, I mean, it's just something you gotta come to terms with. You gotta get used to it. It's just something you gotta accept, right? They're gonna be there. They're gonna turn up. You can't use, unless it's a very minor crayfish problem and then they're little tiny crayfish, you can't even get away with tiger nuts. So you just forget it. They're going to demolish everything. They'll demolish the soft plastics even. What I would do is get a good understanding of how much bait the crayfish are actually eating. If it's anything like the crayfish on the water park, they'll be eating a shitload, phenomenal amount. And you just got to put the bait in. You just have to do it. Doesn't matter if you're baiting up with sweet corn or a fish meal, krill, boilie. They like it all. Some people say, certain baits they don't like as much. I think when they are absolutely overrunning a lake and they're ravenous, which they always are, well, they always seem to be, I don't think it matters what bait you put out. I really don't. I think some people say like garlic, things like that. I haven't seen it. I just haven't. So you just got to get over it. Put plenty of bait out. Use wooden bowls. Use wooden balls. You get these in craft shops. Make sure they haven't been varnished or anything like that, but just plain wooden balls. And then you can soak them in whatever liquid you want to soak them in. So they'll be very attractive, but the crayfish won't be able to demolish them. That's what I use. I also use plastics as well. And another good thing is if you can stalk, then stalk. I know the water that you're referring to because of what you've said in your other message, which I won't go into. So I'm aware of the water. I've seen the water. I've never fished it, but I'm aware of it. And as you know, I've spoke to a couple of people that have done well on it. I don't know what they did. I don't know if they had any tricks or tactics. I really couldn't tell you that. But yeah, stalking is, it's the one way around the crayfish. Yeah, you'll get crayfish in the margins, etc. where you stalk, of course, but you generally can see your bait. You can make sure it's all okay, or if carp are there. Generally, the crayfish aren't going to be as prevalent if the carp are around, though not always. Definitely not always. Some of these crayfish are freaking hard animals, and they're big animals as well. So yeah, I don't have anything that's like crazily revolutionary. Not really. There's a few things I'm working on, but I don't really think there's much mileage in it, to be honest. I think put the bait in, keep it going. Make sure if the carp aren't there, make sure when they do turn up, there's bait there, and make sure your hook bait is intact. Make sure it's not getting tangled. Don't go casting out braid or even coated braid. Go for a stiff hook link. Don't go for like a really sharp hook, because the crayfish, they will just drag it up and down, up and down, up and down. Just smash your hook point in. It's like they do it for fun. You can't you can't chuck too sharp a hook out. They'll just totally fuck it up. So yeah, you've got to go a bit crude in your rigs and your setup. Non-sharp hook. I like a big old hook for all my fishing anyway, but you want it a bit industrious. Thick hook length. Make sure it won't tangle. Make sure it kind of quote unquote resets itself. Yeah, I mean, just go a little bit crude and industrial. That's my advice. That's my advice. There's not much else you can do. You can actually get a bit clever with the baiting up times and things like that. If you know that, bite time is pretty much always, X o'clock. If you bait up a couple of hours before that, the crayfish don't have quite as long to demolish it. Then again, if the crayfish are eating the bait, they're breaking it up in their claws and their mouth. It's releasing food signals into the water column, isn't it? So if you think you've got like 100 or 1,000 crayfish all over your bait, munching on your bait, think how much more food signal is going to be kicked up into the water as a result of them eating. So it's not all bad. That's it, really. I don't think that helps you. Hopefully, I don't know, you've got something out of there. If nothing else, maybe you just realise that I'm in the same boat and it's an absolute fuck up and I don't know how to get around it. It's just something you've got to accept. Next question is, and this is from Mr. Ian McNeil. I'll mention him because he's been on the podcast, so I guess I'm allowed to mention his name. Question: discussions about gut transit times are quite poignant when designing a bait for different times of the year. But have you considered accounting for gut capacity, especially with bait ingredient density, solubility, and bait size? Great question. Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned gut irritability, excuse me, beers have kicked in. I've already mentioned that, so I've already partially, I haven't answered your question because you didn't mention that, but I did. In terms of gut capacity and bait size, I mean, as you know, the carp suck in the bait and they will break it up in their phalangeal teeth. So it gets broken up, but sure, I mean, a bigger bait is going to get probably broken up into smaller pieces than others. I mean, for me, I like a highly soluble, soft bait. I imagine you're the same, Ian. I don't know, so I might be wrong there, but I imagine you're the same. I think if your bait's very, very soft and soluble, it's getting mushed up into the phalangeal teeth, it's going down the pipes, it's getting broken down physically pretty efficiently and quickly, which will help the gut do its thing. I wouldn't necessarily worry about, or I haven't in the past, worried about size, feed piece size, if I'm saying that right. That's never been a worry for me. Carp will shit out big parts of swan mussels and crayfish claws. It's not common, but they will do it. Doesn't mean it's ideal, though, does it? But they will do it. So in terms of the bait size, no, that doesn't worry me at all. In terms of, I'm trying to answer this properly. Just repeat it. Consider accounting for gut capacity, especially with bait ingredient density. Bait ingredient density and bait density. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I am with you on that. So again, harping on about it, but my hydro milk, when you roll that, it actually comes out very firm. It's quite a firm, fairly dense bait. Obviously due to the nature of the milk proteins and the fiber compounds and the other different bits I put in there. But however, that becomes, once it's submerged in water, it's very soluble, and it softens up a hell of a lot. But straight away, yeah, I mean, that's, if you're putting it straight in and it's a firm, dense bait and they're eating it straight away, I don't think they're going to assimilate as much of the nutrients from that boilie as if it was made softer or it had been submerged for a long period of time. So yeah, I think that has a factor of things. However, tiger nuts are very dense. They'll eat them all day long. They'll keep passing them through without issue. I don't think it would put them off. I just think it would render the bait less nutritious for them, to be honest with you. So, I mean, what's the answer to this? For me, I want it highly digestible. I want it to move through them efficiently, and I want it to be very nutritionally available to them. I want them to be able to extract the nutrition very efficiently, and I want it to be nice and soft. I think that's the way around this. I don't know if that answers it. I don't think I have anything more profound to say other than what I've just said, which probably isn't very profound at all, but that's my 2 penneth on it. I also think it's important that they enjoy eating it. If it's uncomfortable for them to eat, as I said earlier about, perhaps the potential issue of capsaicin spices, I think there's a real strong potential for that to be uncomfortable for them. They'll keep eating it, but it doesn't really mean it's ideal, and it's perhaps not doing them a whole great deal of good either. So yeah, I think they need to keep wanting to eat it. I think it should be enjoyable to eat. I think it should be very palatable. And yeah, I think it should be easy to digest and easy to pass through. Yeah, that's my take on it. Next question. Since using your new milk protein base mix, have you noticed anything different in your catches? If so, in what way? Yes. The catch reports I'm getting seem to be of big fish. Now, that could be skewed because, I mean, who's going to send me a catch report of this lovely little 12-pounder they've just caught? Probably absolutely no one. But bear in mind, I get catch reports from all the different products I use. Not that I actually ask for catch reports or anything like that, but people do, don't they? They buy stuff and they'll send in, I've just had this, I had an amazing season, and blah, 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 blah. So yeah, I'm getting a lot of big fish being caught on it. As with the GLM primer powder and hydro liquid, there's just been big fish caught on it. Me personally, I really think since I've started using the hydro milk, not catching as many fish, but I'm catching the older, bigger fish that I want to be catching. Whether that's because I'm just refining my angling style towards them or not, I don't know. And for some people, that will be a con. So, maybe you don't want that. Maybe you want to catch volumes of fish. If that's the case, then, probably don't buy that hydro milk. It's probably not for you. But if you're happy to kind of wait it out for the bigger, older, maybe more wary fish, I think absolutely go for it. And the catch reports are really backing that theory up at the minute. So yeah, what I've noticed myself, I'm not catching as many fish, but I honestly feel like I'm catching the bigger fish. I truly believe that. Truly do believe that. Right. Next question. Oh yes, Brian. I sent you a question on your Q&A about the pet foods and bird foods being used in rollbacks. Basically, I answered this guy's question in the last episode and I got it wrong. So sorry, Brian, I messed that up for you, bud. He said, I get what you said about the pre-made bird food, but much of the bird food I do use is the actual bird food that's fed to wild birds, and it's kind of a pigeon conditioner, but with a bit of a different makeup. But what I started to do was that is roasted it, let it cool. I think he's saying he roasted it and let it cool, and then ground it up and put it into his boilie mix. That's kind of what I was on about for the bird food. And with pet foods, I was talking about grinding down cat food biscuits and adding that to certain boilies that I make, and wondered if you had any experience using this, adding to any boilies. Yeah, so certainly with the cat, I mean, that's the old school thing, right? Cat biscuits. Even Rod Hutchinson sold one of his baits, which is just pretty much ground down cat biscuits. They work freaking well, for sure. Would they still work nowadays? Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't use it because I don't have full control over it. The bait has been formulated by the cat feed company, Whiskers or whatever it is. I like to just build things from scratch, so it's not really for me. But would it work really well? Yeah, absolutely. Experiment with that stuff. I think there's mileage. Again, it's a bit different, isn't it? How many people do you know that are grinding up cat food biscuits and putting it into a bait? Probably not many. So again, it's that being a bit different from everyone else, so your bait shines out. And then obviously, you know, if you do want to pre-bait, things like that, it's all the better, isn't it? So yes, with pet foods, I think that's a go. And the bird feeds, the seeds, mixed seeds, yeah, absolutely. And pigeon conditioner, I'm a fan of. I like pigeon conditioner. I think it's a good ingredient. It's a good, cheap, bulk ingredient. Carp like it. Yeah, great. If you're using these mixed seeds, these bird feeds, and you're toasting it and it's working for you, then yeah, keep doing it. I mean, I don't have anything else to say on it other than that. I'm sure it will work well. It's not something personally that I'm interested in doing, but I'm sure there's a lot of mileage in it. And I did think a while ago, actually, I'd like to get my own mill and start milling my own seeds. I'd be quite interested in doing that, but it's just something else to get in the way and suck more of my time. So yeah, I won't be. But yeah, it sounds good. Sounds what you're doing is interesting, and it sounds like it's working for you. So yeah, keep it up. I don't really have anything else to give other than that, unfortunately. But thanks for your question anyway. Next question by someone else, different Wayne. I'm gonna have to have some beer. I feel like I've been like motor mouthing, and my mouth is really dry. Excuse me. Right. Next question is, hi Sam. In future, can I have my question put on the Carp Chronicles podcast? Yes, you can, buddy. Do fish/savoury based flavours work with a high level milk based base mix? As there seems to be very few out there, and the reasons why and why not. My other subject question is, why do most... All right, let me answer this first one first. What I kind of disagree in as much as I don't think there are many high levels of milk-based baits out there. I mean, who does one? Dean does one with relatively high amounts of milk proteins. I don't think they're that high. And he'll be the first to say that, and I'm sure he doesn't want them that high. I'm not bad-mouthing his bait. Dean makes a very good bait. I'd happily use his baits, no problem at all. But an out-and-out high milk protein bait, there doesn't seem to be many out there that use savoury flavours. Well, yeah, fishy flavours, because there isn't many of those baits out there. I think the real question is, like, why is the reason why... I feel like I'm really fucking hashing this up, but what's the reason why you wouldn't put a fishy flavour with a milk base? And I wouldn't. For whatever reason, it just seems very odd to me. Like, Wizard, great flavour. John Baker's a la Salar, good flavour, great flavour. Would I put that with the hydro milk? No, I absolutely wouldn't. Why? Because it just doesn't seem right to me. And that is complete... I'm just putting a human slant on it, but there's no reason why not. There's lads using the hydro milk, which is my milk protein base mix, with the strange fruit, doing really well. When the strange fruit is part fruit, part meat and liver based flavours, touch of TMO, a touch of TMA in it, and it's just not really the flavour that I would put with a milk base mix, but yet they're doing well. So there seems to be very few out there. He's asking other reasons why and why not. Yeah, I think the reason is just humanisms. I think it just doesn't seem right for humans. Compare it to, say, like a bun spice and creamy flavour. That just feels right on a milk base mix, doesn't it? It just feels like it would go. And it does, and it catches shitloads of fish. So I guess it's a confidence thing, but what I would say to you is, if you want to be truly different, use a high milk protein base mix, or bait, make it yourself. If you want to be even more different and do what no one else is definitely no one is doing, I guess, put it with a fishy flavour. And then it's very different, isn't it? Will it work as well? I don't know, because I've not tried it or tested it. There's no scientific reason that I can think of that would mean you wouldn't want to do it. And I probably should have just said that in the beginning rather than waffling on like an idiot. But yeah, there's no scientific reason why not to do it, bud. It's just a confidence thing, I guess. It just doesn't seem right, not to me at least, anyway. So, is our second part. My other subject question is, why do most hook bait manufacturers follow the same colour patterns to bait flavours? Pineapple, yellow, tutti, orange, etc. Is it because it is easier to sell to the customer as they can relate the colour to the flavour? Yes, I would say so. Or is it more down to the fish associating the colour to the flavour and food source? No, I don't think so. Because I don't think and I'm saying this, and I know you understand this, but I don't think the fish are swimming up to yellow pineapples and eating them and thinking, if there's a pineapple hook bait and it's like red, well, hang on, that pineapple doesn't look right. They're not doing that, are they? I brought out my pineapple hook baits not long ago as a special edition. And I did them in this a reddy volcano lava type red, instead of the traditional yellow, because I just couldn't bear to bring out a yellow pineapple hook bait. They've been done to death. It's super predictable, and I just don't want to fucking do it. Those red pineapple hook baits caught ridiculous amount of fish. I released them as a special. The amount of people I said, can you do more, please? Doesn't matter how many you have to roll, do me some more, blah, blah, blah. And I've been selling them sort of under the counter, as it were, for quite a while, because they catch really well. They are pineapple, butyric acid, and some other organic acids, and some amino acids, and some other little bits. Got a quote-unquote palatin in there as well. They're great, but they're not yellow. They're red, and they catch very well. So, yeah, I think it is absolutely just what people are conditioned to. They want a yellow pineapple bait. They want an orange tutti. They want a brown fish meal. It's just what people are conditioned to. But I would say, do different things. There is no reason why for the carp. I've had flavour blends I've used years ago, and I've changed the colour in. I've used them as white. I've used them as black. Same flavour profile. They'll work. It just depends what colour I want to fish over that given substrate. So yeah, switch it up. Be different is what I'd say. I think I'm going to release these pineapple hook baits. I do. And I don't know what colour to release them in, but I can guarantee you it's not going to be yellow, because I cannot bring myself to do it. So that is my take on it. There's another. Oh, it's just a question, personal question for me. Okay, no, I won't cover that. Yeah, hopefully that answers your questions, buddy. Right. From John. A question maybe for part 2. How long do you leave baits out? Yeah, I remember reading this. How long do you leave baits out and having the confidence and belief to commit to such a tactic? Benefits are keeping the swim quiet and baiting to a minimum. Yeah, of course. Interesting subject. I've had a few winter 40s adopting this tactic. Yeah, so how long would I leave a bait out and be confident in it? Of course, no one wants to hear this, but it depends on the water, doesn't it? There's going to be some waters that I am more confident in doing that than others. I have done that before. Generally, in recent years, I do very short sessions, so I don't angle like that. I make sure my baits are breaking down quickly, blah, 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 blah. I just don't fish that way. However, would I, if I could, and the situation warranted it? Yeah. But it would be more of a case of, rather than my confidence being dictated by the length of time out, I would dictate my type of bait by the amount of time I needed to leave it out, if that made sense. So I wouldn't just have my bait and that's it, and sometimes I use it this time, sometimes I don't. If I went to a water and I'm like, okay, I'm probably, or maybe I've got to leave a bait out for 4 or 5 days before I'm going to get a take, I would change the formulation of that bait so it was active throughout that whole timeline. And I don't think many baits on the market would be. My hydro milk, leave it out for 5 days, is going to be mush. Same as my voodoo fish meal. It's going to be mush. So I wouldn't use those baits in that scenario. Let me read the question again, make sure I'm actually answering this. How long to leave baits out, having the confidence and belief to commit in such a tactic? So yeah, it would depend on how well I formulated it. I mean, here's the flip side. In this nowadays, I don't think I would necessarily need to leave all of my baits out for that time. Okay, certain scenarios are going to dictate you have to just, bait and wait, sit on your rods. I still think I'd have a rod, roving around, casting around. And I am all for not disturbing the swim. A lot of the time I will find fish and cast to them. That is my style these days. I'm not, thumping a freaking 5-ounce lead at them until I get a nice drop. I'm fishing a very light lead in that scenario. I like a heavy lead, but in that scenario, I'll fish a very light lead and I'll make sure I'm fishing with a rig that's presented. It's shocking. It's crazy how many times you'll get a bite really quick from doing that. So whilst, of course, I want to keep disturbance to an absolute freaking minimum, and baiting and waiting is obviously the greatest way to overcome that, I'm not afraid to stick a bait on a carp's head or near a carp. I really am not. If I was afraid to do that, my angling would be shit, because that's pretty much all I get the chance to do now, buddy. But yeah, I'd happily leave a bait out for a week if I needed to. I mean, I wouldn't want to fish a week anymore. I've got other shit going on. But if I was, I'd happily leave my baits out for that. Yeah. Well, I was trying to think. The last time I left the bait out for maybe 2 days, I think it was probably a year or two ago when I went on a social with Pete. I think it was maybe 2 days it was left out. It might not have even been that. But other than that, I can't remember the last time I left the bait out more than 24 hours. So, yeah, it just doesn't lend itself to my type of angling, but I'd happily do it. But I would change my bait in accordance to suit it. I mean, tiger nuts would be a good one, wouldn't they? Because it takes a long time for tiger nuts to go nasty in the water, and they're pretty much always attractive. They'd be a good one if I didn't want to formulate an actual boilie for it. Yeah, I don't know if I've done your question justice or not, buddy, but that is my immediate thoughts on it. Yeah. Oh, just picking up on this, actually, she's had a few winter 40s on it. See, in the winter, I would be less inclined to do that, because in my experience, most waters, the carp aren't really moving around that much in winter. They're a bit more kind of out of it, like docile, for want of a better phrase. So I would rather find them, and I'd happily whack a bait at them. I don't think it would disturb them as much as it would do in the warmer months. Yeah, and my confidence would dwindle after a few days, because if the carp aren't moving around, if I hadn't seen them moving in and out that, if I knew they moved in and out of that area on different weather phases, and I knew that weather phase was coming up, then that's different. I'd happily do it. But yeah, in winter, I'd be a bit more cautious about doing that. Again, that's just me. Of course, it will work. But yeah, nowadays, I like to find the fish, get up close and personal, down and dirty, and cast to the buggers. Fingers crossed I get them that way. Right, next question. Have you ever dealt with losing your mojo for fishing? Yes, I have. I've had a year where I haven't had loads of time, with real life getting in the way, and when I have had time, I haven't had the same buzz I've had in previous years. Looking forward to the podcast. Thanks, man. I have dealt with that, yeah. And I've dealt with the opposite, where I'm just too fixated on going fishing, and actually other things are going to shit. And yeah, so I've had both sides of the coin, and problems come with either side of the extreme of it. But yeah, I mean, you got to ask yourself, have you lost your mojo with fishing, or are you just sick of fishing that particular water? I've had it before where I'm just like, oh God, I'm due to go fishing. I'm not motivated to go. I don't want to go there and try and battle for a frickin' swim and this, that and the other. And then I have to ask myself, well, do the carp I'm trying to catch really mean that much? Isn't this supposed to be fun anyway? Like, aren't we supposed to be doing this for fun? Or are we just doing it to tick a box? And I'm all for, in different areas of life, I'm all for knuckling down and fucking persevering and pushing through. And you know what? Not everything should be fucking pleasurable. And we shouldn't be fucking motivated all the time. Motivation is overrated. Building habits and discipline is really underrated, right? The line of work that I do, one of my businesses, nutrition consultancy, at quite a high level. And yes, I deal with a high level of stuff, so I'm not really dealing with motivation. But lower down in the industry, I don't mean lower down, I didn't mean that to sound disrespectful, but more like the fat loss side of things. It's like everyone wants to be, I'm just not motivated. How do I be motivated? Well, that's valid. Get motivated, right? But once you're motivated, you have to understand that your motivation is going to dwindle. It will dwindle. You have to be motivated to get into it, and then you need to cultivate habits and discipline. You need to cultivate habits and discipline with these different endeavors in life. Now, I don't know if carp fishing is one of those things because, again, we're supposed to be doing it as a hobby. Unless it's your profession, if you're Terry Hearn or you're one of these other fuckers who, you know, not fuckers, I don't mean that disrespectfully, but you're one of these guys that it's your job to go out and catch fish. It is in your financial interest to go and catch fish. I think Tom Stokes is professional now. I think Daryl Peck is professional. They are both amazing anglers. I bet, I might be wrong, I'd love to hear their opinion on this, but I bet they're not always motivated to go out and catch the carp and to keep on to their target, their campaign. But I bet they do it anyway because they have developed habits, they have developed discipline around it. And I would guarantee, I would put money on it that that is a key part of their skill. I don't think they're always like hop skipping to the lake. And it's not just the professional guys, actually. Look at any well-known big fish angler. There's loads of them. I bet they cultivate discipline in order to get the results. So anyway, waffling on. I've lost my mojo. Yes, before. Yes, I have. Generally, what I find, me personally, I'm like an all or nothing person. So if I'm like really into fishing for a while, I'll just be naturally motivated anyway. I don't need to build up discipline. It's all I want to do. If I'm more focused on business, like all I'm doing is business. If I'm like getting into like to cooking different recipes at home, which I don't do much, I'm all in on that. And I neglect all the other stuff, which is bad. And I'm terrible for this. So I'm probably not the best person to ask, but I mean, I could certainly talk about a business perspective. I own a couple of businesses, and that maybe makes me sound like I'm loaded or something. Trust me, I am not. Far from it. But I am a trier. And yeah, I'm not always motivated to go out and do those things, but I build the discipline around it. I just think for me, fishing is a bit different from that. But if you want to fish and you want to keep at it and you want to catch your target, and if you think that if I don't stick to this, I'm going to look back and I'll be very sad I didn't catch that fish or what have you, then get motivated and then get discipline from the motivation. It's easier to build the discipline when you're motivated. Build the habits. Go and do it. I guarantee something. If you've got a target out in that water and you're not doing all you can to catch it, there's someone else that will be. And of course, if you decide to do all you can to catch it, there's still other people that are doing that as well. But be motivated by that. There's someone else out there that might be pre-baiting that water right now. They might be throwing bait into a spot where that fish is going to turn up tomorrow. Now, do you want to just sit by idly and waste your time, or do you want to get out there, get involved, and at least do all you can do to catch that fish? You know, if you don't catch it, someone else will. That is the thing. So, yeah, hard to answer. I don't know if that helps at all. I've probably gone way too deep than what you wanted, and you're probably thinking, who the fuck is this guy? But that's my take on it. If in doubt, read a bit of Terry Hearn. God, it gets the juices going, doesn't it? watch a Terry. This is probably what I would do. I'd probably watch a Terry Hearn YouTube video from the ESP channel. I think you watch that the night before you're due to go. I mean, come on, who isn't going to be itching to get the rods out? Yeah, don't know if that helps, chap. Apologies if it doesn't, but hopefully it does. Next question. Oh my Jesus, there are quite a lot to get through. How long have we been going? Yeah, quite a while. Over an hour. Damn, I might have to do these on another session. Right, let's answer this one. How would you go about improving this milk protein mix? And would you say a milk protein bait can compete with a fish meal bait throughout the whole year? Yes, I would say most definitely a milk protein bait can compete and excel a fish meal bait. Absolutely. I kind of touched on this earlier, but if everyone's using fish meals or nut baits, bird foods, the last thing I want to be doing is using the same as everyone else. So I'll be going down a milk protein base mix route. Conversely, if everyone's on nut meals and things like that, depending on the stock I was fishing for, I'd probably fish an out and out hardcore, very soluble fish meal like the Voodoo that I'm going to be bringing out that I mentioned earlier. Absolutely a milk protein bait can compete with a fish meal. What I will say though is it's easy to fuck up a milk protein bait. You've got to be very, very careful if you want it to be very attractive and very digestible. There's a lot to it. He's given me the mix. I did warn him I'll get this mix covered, but it won't be pretty. So he's got 100 grams of rennet, 100 grams of lactic, 100 grams of acid, these are all casein, 100 grams of whey protein concentrate, 100 grams of lactalbumin. Well, I mean, look, is that real lactalbumin? I freaking doubt it, because that is insanely expensive for like 50 grams. You're talking hundreds of pounds or something stupid like that. So that won't be proper lactalbumin, just as a little forewarning there. 100 grams egg albumin, no. 100 grams soya protein isolate, maybe, not a fan. 100 grams calcium caseinate. 100 grams of whole egg powder, no. 100 grams of semolina, yeah, okay. Look, that is going to be one bound up fucking ball of tightness, which is completely inert and unattractive to anything. Sorry to be brutal, and I mean this respectfully. I'm not trying to like shit all over you, but yeah, you need more fiber in there. You need more solubles in there. Remember, you're boiling these up, and they are gonna gel and solidify and become very unattractive. Not unattractive, unsoluble. Sorry. So yeah, you need much more roughage in there. You need there's no point, in most respectful way, there's no point trying to dock to that mix, because you need to just start again. You just need to start at the beginning. The egg, just start again, buddy. The liquid component, 6 eggs, 20 ml CSL, 10 ml almond oil, 2 ml flavour. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. I'd probably up the CSL a little bit. But possibly lower the almond oil, depends what else is in the mix. It's quite a low fat mix as it is. You've got 10% soy protein. There's not that much fat in there at all. So sorry, I can't kind of give a better thing than that. But I would just chuck that mix out and start again. Buy my mix is what I'd do. I would say that, right? But yeah, I just think there's too much going on there. I mean, first off, what have you got? You got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. So you got 60% of that mix are milk proteins. I would say that's too much. And then the other part is egg albumin, nope. Whole egg powder, nope. And semolina, nope. Oh, there's more than that then. There's more than 60%, right? What have I missed? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Oh no, it's 60. 70, 80. Oh yeah, 90, 100. Yeah, I missed that. Just change it, bud. Send me a few messages if you want, and I'll help you a bit further, because I feel like I'm doing a really bad job, and I feel like I'm just mocking you, and I don't want to. I didn't mean to. So yeah, sorry about that, mate. Right, I think I've got a... Nah, fuck it. I'm going to answer them. I'm going to go for it. I was going to leave the podcast there, but no, fuck it. I will carry on. Right, next question. Let me have some beer and let's fucking do this. Right. Question. Are you a few jars deep now? Yes. I'm out on the bank currently enjoying a hobgoblin. Good man. I'm sure you're not anymore by the time I record this, but yeah, cheers. Here is to you, and here's to us. Another good excuse for another bit of beer, eh? Right. Next question. Have you used higher levels of TMA, trimethylamine that is, in attractor type hook baits, much like the far higher levels of NBA? Right. So the guy that's asked this, I've got a feeling you're quite into your TMA, aren't you? We've spoken about it before, and I know your friend, who's got a bait company, I think he uses TMA in something, doesn't he? If I'm not mistaken. And I think you've played around with it a lot. So your question, have I used higher levels? Yes, I have, and I'll be honest, kind of hit and miss with it. I put a lot of that into our wizard flavour. I say ours. There's no us. I just created that on my own. And there's no one else in the business now. It's just me. So yeah, the wizard flavour has got quite a lot of TMA in it. I haven't gone over high with it because, again, as I said, I think it can be hit and miss at the higher levels, as can a lot of things. I think with the higher levels, you can certainly increase... what's the right word for it? Intrigue within the carp. I think you can excite them almost, for want of a better phrase, with higher levels. Is it going to lead to them eating the bait with gusto? I don't think so. Always, it seems hit and miss. When I did some pond testing with it, I couldn't draw a conclusion. There would be some days with the high levels, they would be on it, like they seemed ravenous with it. They wouldn't be ravenous, they're well-fed fish in my pond. And other days, not so much, almost put off by it. I've had it where they're almost distressed by it. And I couldn't see that I was doing anything different, or that any scenarios. There was just no rhyme or reason to it, basically. So for me, I'm a little bit cautious about going really high with trimethylamine, TMA. I just think it's, I don't know, man. I don't think it's necessary either. I think at low levels it will make a difference and trigger intrigue from carp. So yeah, why go higher? I tell you what, I'd be interested in your answer from that. So yeah, maybe drop me a message. I'd be interested to hear if you've messed around with it. I think you test baits quite a lot, and yeah, I'm sure you've messed around with it. So yeah, let me know, bud. Sorry, I can't give a better answer than that, but yeah, I'm not convinced, to be honest. But nonetheless, I think it's a valid ingredient. Next question. Recommendations for hydro liquid combos to go in a decent fish meal recipe, not krill. Of course, I'm going to recommend my hydro, but if you don't want to use mine, which is it's a hydro blend, it's some hydrolyzed liquids with some fermented liquids and a lot of green lip mussel extract, full fat. It's quite a pain in the ass process that I do to make that. I really like it. That's what I use. If you didn't want to use mine, yeah, liquid combos. I mean, go to Baccarat, however you want to say it. Their tuna hydrolyse is very good. Their shrimp is very good. Their salmigo, their salmon hydrolyse is very good. They're all very good liquids. If you want to put it in a fish meal, they're great. As well as that, maybe you want to go a little bit more out the box. Vicon, Marmite, Bragg's liquid aminos, things like that aren't really used or sold for fishing. They're all good things. I'm I mean, we've spoke so many times about salmigo mixed with squid bran fish sauce. That's a great combo as well. They're all good things. I mean, find what you like. I quite like Marmite. I think it's underappreciated, underused, but I think it's very attractive to carp. So yeah, go a bit different. Why not mix some salmigo with some Marmite? I don't think there's that many people doing that, but yeah, that would work very well. In fact, I've used that before. It does work very well, either in a boilie or as a coating for boilies. Yeah, yeah. Experiment. Find what works for you on your water. I like a mix of fermented liquids and hydrolysates, which is why I brought out that liquid that I brought out. So yeah, maybe I suppose my advice would be to do your own version of that. Get some hydros, ferment some stuff, or buy fermented things. Yeah, go down that route. Next question. As they've not seen it before and are used to farm feeds. Buddy, I think Instagram have chopped out half your question, so I don't actually know what it is. All I can see is, as they've not seen it before and are used to farm feeds. I don't know what the rest of the question is. Oh, it's below. I've got it. Okay. Will new carp stocked into a lake from a fish farm be more wary of liquid flavours such as salmigo? I don't know, because I don't fish for those kind of carp. I would have thought no. I think they're probably pretty green, naive. As they've not seen it before, they'll probably be very interested in it. Salmigo has got high levels of amino acids in and organic acids. And some other things as well, nucleotides, and I think they're going to be very switched on by it, and I think they'd go for it. So no, I don't think they'd be wary of it because they haven't seen it before. I think they'd switch on pretty well. I mean, yeah, that's what I think. I mean, generally, I'm presuming they're going to be ravenous fish. If they're ravenous fish and they are coming across these feed signals, which are hardwired into their DNA to be attracted to, I think they're going to be switched on by it. I don't think they're going to be wary. I mean, they've not been fished for before. They don't associate any type of food with danger, so I don't see why they would be wary of it, to be honest. So yeah, I think that would be, I think they'd be really turned on by it. Next question. Would be interested in hearing more on the hydro milk flavors / labels, what levels, etc. Yeah, I kind of covered this earlier, but the butter spice and cream dream is a heavenly combo. It smells delicious to us, and then the carp really like it as well. As I said, the strawberry cream EA is another great one. What I like doing with flavors is mixing bases so you get a varied leak off time. So, as you may or may not know, I do a lot of ethyl alcohol based flavors, which used to be very popular back in the old school. But since ethyl alcohol, ethanol, has got expensive, companies aren't using it anymore because they don't make as much profit, which is just a sad state of the industry, isn't it? But yeah, I use them a lot. They're very attractive. They tolerated very well. They seep in the bait very well. Yes, alcohol is heat sensitive, but the compounds within are not necessarily. Don't worry about that. But that's going to leak out of the bait very quickly. So I would put that with either an oil-based flavour or a propylene glycol flavour, which will be a slower releasing flavour base from the bait. So yeah, I like to mix it up. If you want to use the hydro milk and you want your own label and your own kind of twist on it, send me a message. I will give you some pointers that I probably would. And yeah, I mean, if I tell everyone, oh look, here is the thing to do with it, everyone's going to be using the same thing, and then it's almost like you've lost your little edge. And I imagine people that buy that hydro milk, and it's an expensive mix, they're spending their good hard-earned money on it, and they wanting something very different. So yeah, pop me a message, and that goes for anyone, by the way. If you want your own little kind of tweak to it, little thing, tell me about your water, we'll come up with something. But yeah, I don't know if that answers your question or not, buddy. But yeah, all I can say is so far it's been working very well with the cream dream and butter spice, and also the strawberry cream EA as well. And as well, there's the other guy who's just caning it with these strange fruit, which to me just seems strange, pun not intended, but he's doing really fucking well. So, yeah. There we go. What do I know, eh? Hopefully that helps, mate. Next one, honey for glazing / coating baits. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're using a raw, high-quality honey where the enzymes and different nutrients are still intact, then you definitely don't want to be boiling it. Yeah, honey as a glaze is a good thing to use. The good quality ones, obviously, they're quite expensive. You could argue that, well, it's just sugars that are being attractive to the carp. You could just use any sugar, which is cheaper. Yeah, maybe glucose, fructose. But as I said, there's other things in honey, and I believe those other things are attractive to carp and have mileage in. So yes, I would absolutely use honey as a glaze or a coating for boilies, particles, whatever. I think you'll do well. Next question, salt in winter or pre-spawn only? Yeah, absolutely. Use. A lot of people are anti-salt, aren't they? Because they think it's going to damage the water. I've looked into this now in great detail. I'm very firm of the opinion it just is not ever going to be an issue. So, yeah, absolutely. Use salt in winter. Why are the carp absolutely fucking craving salt pre-spawning and summer? Well, yes, partly because they need extra minerals and salt, but also because they probably haven't had that much over winter due to the nature of the biological cycle of the lake. So, and you know, bait's not coming in and things like that. Yeah, use it in winter. Absolutely, it will work well. In fact, I was at the lake the other day. I can't get down to pre-bait or anything, but I've put some natural pink Himalayan sea salt in an area because I know that will be attractive for the carp. I mean, they're not going to be like eating it or anything like that, but it doesn't work like that, and I know you know it doesn't work like that. But as well as that, it's not just the carp; it's the other aquatic life that salt is vital for. It's salt. Traditionally, historically, in the animal world, has been a very hard to come by resource, which is very valued by all animals as well as our own ancestors. You know, you've heard of the saying, "Worth your salt." So yeah, salt is a good one. It's no different for carp. They need it. They will seek it out. And yeah, I would happily use it in the winter, and I do happily use it in the winter. And yeah, I think it's worthwhile doing. I don't think you need to use shitloads of it. I just don't think you should. I don't think you need to. But yeah, crack on, bud, is what I would say if you're not already. Right, next question. Best ingredients for cold water solubility, digestibility, and attraction. Well, that is a bigger question than you might realise. I mean, it's ingredients. So I'm presuming you're making a boilie. So soluble ingredients, they're going to be soluble in warm water or cold water. Yes, to varying degrees. But still, some aren't soluble in warm but not soluble in cold and vice versa. Hopefully I've explained that correctly. So, I mean, if you're rolling a fish meal, CPSP 90, which is a pre-digested fish meal, very soluble, very attractive to carp, highly nutritious, very rich in amino acids, nucleotide. It's such a good ingredient, very soluble. Now people shy away from fish meals in the winter, don't they? That is a fish meal that if I was using a winter fish meal, such as the Voodoo I mentioned earlier, there's a shitload of CPSP 90 in that. A lot. You'd be shocked how much. Most people use 10%. There's a hell of a lot more of it in there than that. That's a great one. I mean, I don't know how to answer. There's lots of soluble ingredients. For winter, yeast would be another one that I would definitely look to. But then again, I'd look to that in the spring, in the summer, in the autumn as well. Yeast is a great ingredient. It's not that expensive. It's highly attractive to carp. It's got a lot of benefits to it that are outside attraction in terms of digestion, nutrients, etc. So, yeah, it's a big question, mate. And I don't really know the full context of it. In terms of digestibility, yeah, it's more important in the winter. Their gut enzyme activity is lessened greatly, so you don't want shitloads of protein or anything like that. They're going to be breaking down starches more efficiently than they would do proteins. So a higher carbohydrate based, and perhaps a bit lower in protein is gonna work better in the winter. You want plenty of roughage in there. You want it to move through the gut tract. Kind of spoke about this and covered this earlier, so I won't go into it too much. But yeah, digestibility is so important in the winter, far more important than it is at the rest of the time of year, and even then it's very important. So yeah, really pay close attention to digestibility. Super important. Attraction, again, as I said earlier, these winter carp, they're kind of like semi-dormant. They're a bit, I don't know, what's the word? Right, they're not quite with it. they're not all there. They're a bit dopey. You need to really invigorate their receptors to stimulate them to feed. This is why you can get away with high levels of flavours in the winter. And again, going back to the solubility thing that you mentioned, get the frickin' solubles in the water. Use powders if you're using boilies or using particle or whatever you're using. I wouldn't really use particle, not en masse anyway, but get a load of powders on top of it that are going to be soluble and going to be moving through the water column. That's what I did with the primer powder. That will move through the water column. It's soluble, moves up and down. Do things like that will, get the feed sent in the I nearly said in the air, in the water. You need to switch them on. You need them to think, shit, I need to feed right now. So yeah, get as much attraction in there as possible. Now, I think some people can go wrong when they think, I want to make that really fucking attractive. So, what is attractive? I'm going to bang in some hydrolyzed fish, some salmigo, some tuna. I'm going to put some fish meal in there. I'm going to put some Marmite in there. I'm going to add in some yeast, and you can overdo it. I truly believe that. More is not better. We're not 5 years old anymore. Right? I might feel it sometimes, but as much as it's tempting to think, we'll just fucking throw everything in there and it's going to be so much better, that's not always the case. You've got to be smart. Go for winning combinations. If you want to get a load of powdered attraction in there, yeast, and as I said before, if you're going down the fish meal route, did you say you're going down fish meal? No, you're not. If you're going down fish meal route, go CPSP90, yeast, things like that. Very soluble, very attractive. If you're going more down like a bird food, milk type thing, again, use those things. Who's to say you can't use them with a milk type base mix? Absolutely no one. It just doesn't fit right in our mind, does it? It doesn't fit right in mine anyway. But the hydrolyzed milks, PeptoPro, hydrolyzed casein, hydrolyzed whey protein, excuse me, they're going to be very attractive to those fish, and they will move throughout the water column, and the carp will switch onto them. As well as that, of course, use liquids, things like that. If you're using singles, don't be afraid to go a bit higher in a flavour. I like an EA, an ethyl alcohol-based flavour in the winter. So I use the polar fruit flavour. Works very, very well. Strawberry cream EA, again, works very, very well. Blackcurrant works very, very well. So yeah, get as much attraction in there as possible, bud. And most of all, find the frickin' fish. You can have the most attractive, soluble bait in the frickin' world. If it's nowhere near the fish aren't moving around much in the winter. You're not going to catch them, so make sure you find those fish. Next question. Could you suggest an acidic bait for an alkaline water lake? Off the top of my head, no. I can't, actually. Not because I'm being awkward, I just don't know. I would go for the easiest way of doing that would be get a very acidic flavour, add it at high levels, or fairly high levels, as high levels as you get away with. In terms of base mix ingredients, off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you a base mix recipe that would be very acidic, that would work and hold together and have desirable traits. I couldn't tell you that off the top of my head, so sorry. I've done a shit job for you, but I can't answer that. But yeah, maybe if you're just rolling hook baits or something like that, I'd go for an acidic flavour and use that. Yeah, probably doesn't help you much. Sorry about that. Right, 4 more questions to go. Let me have a bit of beer. Right, next one. Hi Sam, any chance that OptiBaits will bring out a dedicated hook bait pop-up mix / wafter mix? Yes, definitely. For the Voodoo, my fish meal bait, I have to, because it's just the bait is too soft without that. So I'll be bringing out one for that. You don't need to be using the Voodoo base mix to do well on that. It's awesome in its own right. And the hydro milk, so many people have asked for a hook bait and pop-up base mix based on that hydro milk. I have to do it, and it's, to be honest, it's quite simple to do. So yes, is the answer. Pretty soon the hydro milk hook bait mix / pop-up mix will be out, and yeah, I'll be doing the same for the Voodoo when that comes out. Next question. Is the milk base mix good for all year round use, especially in winter? Yeah, absolutely. It is deadly in winter. It's deadly in winter. It's very, very efficient in winter. I like milks in winter. Again, the danger is not putting the base mix together properly. It needs to be digestible, blah, 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 blah. I've already covered that in detail. But yeah, absolutely. It's very, very good in the winter. Very, very good. But it's equally good in the summer as well. It's phenomenal bait. The way I do my base mixes, the Voodoo is the same. The oil content is low in both of them purposefully, because if you want to add to up the fat content, the oil, the lipids, you can do so via actual oil, whether that's hemp oil or salmon oil or whatever. And that is the best way to increase your fat content of a boilie, rather than through ingredients like, full fat soya, which I don't like, things like that. You're better off adding it in oil form to the eggs. So I purposely keep those low in oil. So if you want a bit more oil in the spring, the summer and autumn, add a bit more oil. If use less in the winter, and that's the way to go. That being said, a little bit of toasted sesame oil I like in the winter with the hydro milk. That works really, really nicely. It's a great winter oil. Hemp oil is good as well. But yeah, have I gone off on a tangent? Yes, I have. Is it good in the winter? Yes, very good in the winter. Highly recommended. Next question is, which flavour would you recommend for your milk protein base mix? I've already answered this question. Go wild. But yeah, generally, if you feed in en masse, like a lot of baits, Cream Dream and Butter Spice, or the strawberry cream. If you want a bit more of a high attraction type in your face, then definitely the Polar Fruit. That'll work really well. Kind of almost akin to a very highly nutritional Tootie of yesterday. I used to love those Tootie baits in the winter. Yeah. So yeah, that's my opinion on that one, buddy. Last question. What additional bits would you put over your Polar Fruit baits to really give it extra attraction? So if this is the Polar Fruit pop-ups that I roll, I don't know if you're on about the pop-ups or the flavour that I sell. I'm guessing you're saying over the baits. I'm guessing you mean the actual ready roll pop-ups. They are just really good as they are, to be honest. I am using them in a bag, or I would use them in a bag with the hydro milk base mix. I'd definitely use them in a stick. The hydro milk in a stick mix alongside them. Yeah, they're a strong, in your face, highly detectable hook bait in their own right. You don't really need to add too much to them. So as I said, you could use those with the hydro milk if you wanted. Generally in hydro milk bags, there's so much attraction there anyway. I just use a hydro milk bottom bait. I don't bother with any high attract thing. Maybe I'll use a black buku tipper or something like that. But yeah, you could do that if you wanted. But they're just good as they are. They really, really are. If you want a little top tip, if you want to darken them up, because they're white, If you want them darker, spray them with the Choco Stim bait spray that I've got. That will dye them brown. And it seems to just work with that flavour. Although, bizarrely, that Choco Stim seems to work with everything. There's not a bait that it's been used with that it is made worse. It makes everything better. There's one guy, I said this in a previous podcast, used it on the Warlocks, which is a real like out-and-out fish meal hook bait. And then it's a chocolate and vanilla with high levels of amino acids bait spray. Well, the amino acids you can say, well, yeah, that goes well, but chocolate and vanilla, but it works with the fish meal, which has worked. But yeah, that'll work very well with the Polar Fruits hook baits. So yeah, but they're very good on their own, buddy. I'd happily go to a lake with just a pot of Polar Fruits and sling singles at fish all day long, and I'd be super confident in catching. So you don't really need to add anything else to them. Folks, that is it for this episode. I've covered all the questions. I'm glad I covered all the ones at the end. I haven't even got on to those different craft beers. I'm on like my second beer during this. Yeah, I've not drunk too much. I think I've waffled quite a lot. Hopefully not too much. And hopefully I've actually answered all your questions in the way that you wanted them answering. I've just found another question. How annoying. Oh, no, I haven't. No, I haven't. No, I've covered that one. It's all right. Ignore me. Yeah, anyway, that's it for this episode. I hope you have enjoyed it. I will be back soon. I think probably our next episode will be me interviewing someone. And then maybe in the not too distant future, we'll have a bit of a bait debate with myself, Dean Towie and Stephen White. I think someone put a comment of that on YouTube. Several people replied and loads of people PM'd me. So it seems like you want to hear that one. So yeah, I'll try and make that happen. It'll be absolute carnage. Both of those two fellas, they like to chat, don't they? So I'll have to try and be like referee, and yeah, it'll be an interesting night for sure. But I'll try and make that happen. Between now and then, I'll try and get in a bit more of like a general angling podcast. Jake the Heron is due to come back on. So many of you really enjoyed his episode, and he can tell a story, can't he? I could listen to him all day, so I hope to get him back on. And there's a few local anglers that I might be getting on as well. So yeah, anyway, much more to come from us. Thank you if you're still listening now, thank you for listening. Thank you for being a supporter of this podcast. Just by listening, you support the podcast. Go ahead, leave us a review if you're on the Apple Podcast apps. If you have any questions, if I can help you at all, that I enjoy doing this, reach out on social media. I'm most active on Instagram, so go and follow me on Instagram. Just search Carp Chronicles. But you can get me on Facebook as well if you want. And yeah, just get involved. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope you're all having a great autumn, going into winter now. I hope your fishing is going well. And yeah, let's keep things going. And I don't know what I'm trying to say right now. I feel like I'm giving the Queen's speech or something. I don't know. Thanks for listening. Take care. Much love. Goodbye. Psst. If you're still here and you happen to be listening on the Apple Podcast app or Apple iTunes, please take a few moments, leave me a review, let me know how we're doing with this podcast. A, it's really nice to hear from you, and B, it helps this podcast stay relevant and stay in the ratings. If it doesn't stay in the ratings, it falls behind, people don't listen to it, and obviously that means there's not much point me doing it anymore. So if you can take a moment to leave me a review, I'd really appreciate it. If you're not listening on an Apple device, I don't think you can leave us a review unless there's some means that I'm not aware of, but nonetheless, I appreciate you listening. It does mean a lot to me. And yeah, feel free to reach out on social media. That's it. I look forward to bringing the next episode to you very soon.